So good morning, welcome to Matrix 101. If you're just joining us, I made a few announcements at the start of class. We do have a chat feature built in to join me. Feel free to leave your questions in the chat and I will be sure to address those questions at the end of the presentation. Try to be as specific as possible with the questions because by the end of the presentation, if you leave a question that wasn't specific enough, I might not know exactly what you're trying to ask. So just try to be specific in your chat with your questions. Also, these webinars are being recorded and posted on Miami Realtors Live, which is on your gateway, and also on youtube.com/miamitrainers, where we have hundreds of videos for you already and tons of tutorials. So to get started, Matrix 101 is the first in a series of Matrix classes. This is the most basic of the Matrix classes, which means I have to assume you do not know anything about Matrix, or maybe you just need a refresh, it's been a while. But I start with the very basic information, setting up your profile, setting up your notifications, and then we'll go ahead and we'll run a search. I'll show you how to add fields if you need to add fields. I'll show you how your results are presented, the formatting for that, and then I'll show you how to save that search, email results, and or email a report to your customer. So we kind of go through some of the basics. Matrix 101 is followed by Matrix 201, which we will have later today at 11 a.m. In 201, we go back into the searches, but we start to add layers to those searches. So we do include using the map in the search, as well as how to create an auto email, and we also go through Market Watch and Hot Sheet. In Matrix 301, which I have on Thursday at 9:30 a.m., we will go through the creation of a CMA report. Not necessarily how to choose or select your comparables, but more so the report that Matrix has to offer and how that can be edited or modified. We also go through stats and different reports that you can pull to analyze a market. And then we also talk about the speed bar, which allows you to quickly look things up in Matrix. There is a 401, and that is centered around the idea of adding and editing listings, and whether or not you have the ability to do so depends entirely on your broker and the access levels that they're allowing for their agents in their office. Okay, so those are the basic Matrix classes. To go ahead and get started from our website, we have a login point or multiple points of login for the Miami Gateway, which is where all of your single sign-on products will be located. So you sign in once and you can go ahead and jump into multiple products after that. So you don't have to remember or keep track of various logins. So you have the Miami Gateway up at the top where it now says my name, because I'm already logged in. You also will see it scrolling through these little announcements in the center right here, Miami Gateway, and then you also have it right beneath that. You have another point of entry for the Miami Gateway. You click on it and you will log in with your license and password. If it is the first time that you are logging in, your login ID and your password are your license number. And anytime we ask for your license number, that's just the numbers. It doesn't include those two letters that are at the start. Once you log in for the first time, it will ask you to answer some security questions. It will ask you to sign digitally that you're in agreement with our rules and regulations, and it will ask you to create a brand new password. And then from that point onward, your login would be your license number and that password you created. All right, so once your gateway opens up, everything you see in this top half is part of single sign-on, meaning I can just click and go. Sometimes when you're going into these products for the first time, you have to activate them, but from that point onward, it's a click and go process. Matrix is usually in the first or second row, so you can go ahead and click on Matrix. The icon says CoreLogic Matrix because CoreLogic is the company behind Matrix. And behind a few of your other products like iMap, Realist, eProperty Watch. Once you open up Matrix, if this is your first time logging into Matrix, it will ask you to agree to their terms of service. Once you agree to those, you'll be able to move on to a home screen that kind of looks like mine. So along the top, you'll see you have a floating menu bar. in blue. And as I hover my mouse over some of these options, I'll see that there's additional content beneath them. To the right of that, I have the option of English and Spanish, and that's for those of you that maybe prefer to see Matrix in Spanish. That doesn't affect what the customer or the consumer sees when you send them listings. This is just for your view, for your display. You have your name, and then right beneath that in lighter blue, you have a field in the center. That is the speed bar. We go through this in Matrix 301. It kind of speaks its own language, and there are abbreviations involved in using the speed bar. So we like to go through this toward the end of the series once you have a better understanding of Matrix and the abbreviations in Matrix. Next to that, you have your recent searches. These searches are here for 7 days. After 7 days, they'll go ahead and be wiped out or cleared out, which is okay because you do have the option of saving your searches. So this is just to really quickly pull something up again, and maybe if you forgot to save it, or if for whatever reason you veered into something else and lost the screen, you can go back. So you have your recent searches for the last 7 days. Beneath that, you have widgets, these different boxes, and they call them widgets and they can be moved around. So I can go ahead and click and drag and move the things that I use often and place those at the top of my screen. If at any point in time you'd like to modify these a little bit more, you'll notice that each of these widgets has an arrow and an X. The arrow allows me to open and close the box or the widget. So maybe I'm okay with the widget being on the screen, but I don't want to see the content. I can go ahead and just close it. The X would remove it from the screen, and it's not going to delete it. It's just going to file it away somewhere else. So it's going to get rid of it, but it's not being deleted. You cannot permanently delete any of these widgets. So I would go ahead and click on the X and it's gone. Now everything that you X out ends up in a widget named additional, which if you haven't moved things around is usually on the right hand side toward the bottom of the screen. Additional has all of the widgets that I've closed out. And so I just closed out my Market Watch. I decide I want it back. All I have to do is click on Market Watch and drag it back out onto my home screen. So sometimes we think that things have disappeared or we think we've accidentally deleted them. You haven't. All you have to do is look for that widget that says additional. If you notice, you can't exit out. You can open and close it, but you can't click on an X. I would look for this widget and just click and drag things back out onto my screen. The only widget that you cannot modify in any way, shape, manner, or form is news and alerts, which is always going to be in the top left corner. You cannot open and close this. You cannot reposition it. You cannot exit out. Any announcements that are coming from Miami Realtors or from CoreLogic are going to be placed there, and usually you see them as well as a pop-up when you first log into Matrix. So before we jump into setting up your profile, I want to go ahead and just point a couple of things out in the Help tab. So along the floating menu bar on the right hand side, almost toward the end, you'll see that there's an option that says Help. When you click on Help and it loads, you'll notice on the left there is a little search field, so you can just quickly search things up and see if there's anything in here to help you. But there's also like a table of contents beneath that. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'm just going to point a couple of things out. Where it says Data Input Form, I click, and when it opens, I see Paper Input Forms. So Miami Paper Input Forms. I click on that. And these are PDFs of different forms that I can use if I need to. But specifically, I'm going to talk about the property types. So where it says, I'm going to start with RE1. RE1 is your single family and mobile homes. And it's important to know these property types both for when you're, or it's good to know them so that when you're listing things or when you're searching for properties, you know which category to go to, and so you can avoid errors. So RE1 is going to be your single family and mobile homes. RE2 is going to be your condos and townhouses. So between RE1 and RE2, you have all of the residential listings that are for sale or entered as a sale. Residential income is going to be duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes that are for sale. So that means any structure that has 2, 3, or 4 units, apartments, that entire structure is being sold. I can't sell half of a duplex, right? So It's the entire duplex, triplex, or fourplex. That would be in residential income. If it has 5 or more units, we see this mistake often. It doesn't belong in residential income. It actually belongs in commercial, which is a little bit farther down on the list. RNT is residential rental, and that would be single family, condo, and townhouses that are listed as rentals. RLD is residential land. So here we're just talking about land. We're not talking about any structures. We're just talking about land that's for sale. CLD is commercial land, and that's commercial, agricultural, industrial. But again, we're just talking about land. COM is commercial, and that's what we would normally think of with commercial, things like warehouses, retail spaces, etc. But remember, this is also going to include those buildings that have 5 or more units, 5 or more apartments. You have business opportunity, your BUS, that is just businesses. So that is for that person who has a hair salon, a travel agency, a law firm, a medical practice, and they want to sell the business. The office or the location where that business is might not even belong to that person, but they want to sell that business. You can go ahead and list it or search for it in business opportunity. Now, if you are the listing agent, you do need to track any changes, and that's why we have the MLS Status Change form. So when you enter a listing, it's active. If you receive an offer in a few weeks, you have to change that status. It's no longer active. It's now active with a contract, or it's a pending sale. If that falls through and you need to revert back to active, you need to document that. So any changes to your listing need to be documented, whether it is a change of status, a change or reduction or increase in price. Any change needs to be documented, and that needs to be signed so that there's acknowledgement that all parties involved were aware of the change. Now, these are all PDFs, and to be clear, if I'm going to list a single family home, I don't need to use this form. But when you're first starting out and you're unsure of what's required and what isn't, this is a nice way of kind of noting and taking note of everything that you need. So this is a PDF of the fields that you need to then upload or enter into Matrix. So filling this out doesn't do anything in Matrix. This is just for your own personal use. And again, it's not required. Some offices do require it because some offices don't allow you to edit or add your own listings. And so you need to fill this out and give it to the admin assistant or the listing admin who's doing it. But anything that has a red circle with a white R is a required field. And so this is a great way for you to make sure that you have all the information you need before you sit down and you start to load this listing into the system. Now, remember, we have an entire class dedicated to that. It's called Add, Edit, Maintaining Your Listing. And you can go ahead and you would click on Add Edit that you see at the top in the blue floating menu bar, and you would go ahead and add in your listing. So again, that PDF I just showed you is not going to add anything in. It's just going to be a great way for you to kind of organize all the info until eventually you pretty much know everything you need to know. But it's a great way. It's a great way to just kind of keep everything in one place and make sure you have all your information. Now, at the bottom of the screen, I have some forms. However, we recently updated our rules and regulations. We also rolled out clear cooperation and agreement with the National Association of Realtors and their policy. And we also updated some of those forms that are at the bottom of the screen. You can see all of that on our website if you go to MLS. You can also get there directly by going to miamirealtors.com/MLS. So when you get a chance, read through the rules and regulations. When you first log into the gateway, you are asked to digitally sign, and you're signing that you are in agreement with our rules and regulations. So make sure that you read through those. And there are also the MLS fines, which let you know what the fines are for certain violations, which is also basically like the don'ts of the MLS. And then we also have like the auction listing form. We have the office exam. So we have all the forms here where it says MLS forms and applications. So when you get a chance, go ahead and look through here. Here's the clear cooperation I had mentioned earlier. Okay. All right, so the other thing I wanted to point out to you is Matrix support. If you click on Matrix support and click on support, they are available 7 days a week. They close a little earlier on the weekends, but this 1-800 number is for you when you have a technical difficulty, meaning I can't find, a search and I know I saved it, or I forgot how to do something. They can help you as well. If it is a question about what can and can't be listed in the MLS, that is very particular to Miami Realtors. So they are not going to be aware of our rules and regulations. So if it's a technical question, you can reach out to them. If it is an MLS question, you have to reach out to us. And then we have some frequently asked questions in these different categories beneath that. And the last thing I want to point out to you here are the area maps. So I'm going to go ahead and click on area maps, and I'm going to click on Fort Lauderdale. We've basically got a grid system in our MLS, and so the state has been divided up in this grid system. And specifically in Miami-Dade, it's usually a 2-digit number. In Fort Lauderdale or Broward, as you can see, it's a 4-digit number. Now, what I wanted to point out to you is in the top left corner of that map, out of area descriptions, you are a licensed real estate sales associate in the state of Florida, which means that our MLS covers Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, Martin, and St. Lucie. But if someone were to approach you and ask you to list or find them a property in Orlando, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Naples, Fort Myers, whatever, you could go ahead and partake in that transaction. You could go ahead and list that. Now, you would have to use the number 5940, which clearly states it's for Florida, other than Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, Martin, and St. Lucie. If it is outside of this state or outside of the country, you can enter it in the MLS. However, you cannot sell it. You cannot, because you are not licensed in that state or in that country. If you are, then of course, you're free to go finalize that transaction. But if you are not licensed in that state or in that country, you have to refer the business to someone who is. So you can list it in our MLS and then refer the business to a licensed agent. Okay, but these are the numbers you would use because it is a required field when you're adding the listing. 5950 would be anything that's in the islands or in the Caribbean. 5960 is the rest of the country, and 5970 is anything outside of the country and outside of the Caribbean. So I just wanted to point that out in case you ever needed it. It's under area maps. It's on the Fort Lauderdale map, but it's not on all of these maps. So if you notice, if I were to click on Miami-Dade County, that little legend isn't there. Okay, but if you need it, it's on the very first area map. All right, so now that we've gone through the stuff in the help section, I'm going to go ahead and start with your basic setup. So your profile, your email signature, where do you load your picture? So we're going to get started with your information. Hover your mouse over my matrix and click on My Information. All right, and so once this loads, you'll notice that you have a tab for your information, which is your basic contact information. You have your header and footer, CMA cover sheet, email signature, an agent webpage that's provided by Matrix. It is free, or it's included, and it is public. So if you don't have a website, this is a web page. It's something simple that you can use in the meantime. And then portal profile would be your profile as you would like it to appear for your customers. And I'm going to go ahead and show you an example of what the customer sees once you send them listings so that you understand where this portal profile goes. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get started with your information. So this is pretty standard. As you scroll down, you can update your information, but I just want to point out that on the right hand side, some of these fields have an override option. And that allows you to go in and override what was written. So for example, my full name is Margarita Curiel, but people always call me Maggie. So I can override this, click into the field, and add in Maggie. We also gave you the option for the full name. Please know that you have to leave your last name exactly as it appears on your license. So if your last name has multiple names in it, is hyphenated, is long, it has to stay that way. You can change your first name. However, your last name again has to stay as is. The reason that we gave you access to override your full name wasn't so that you would change your last name. It's so that you can add in any certifications and designations that you've earned. So you would be able to write your name, put a comma, and start to list your certifications and designations, which are usually those 3 to 4 letter acronyms that you see listed on people's business cards and whatnot. You have your public email address. Another thing to note there is the email address that you see is the email address that you provided us on your membership application. If you would like to change that, although you have the override option, I would suggest you email the membership department, because you can override it here, but it's just going to override what's displayed. When you start working with Matrix and emailing things, the original email continues to appear as the sender. So if you would like to change this email address, you can email membership@miamire.com. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat so that you can jot it down. And then of course you have your phone number, your office, and you have some optional or additional fields at the end for things like a slogan, your website, etc. When you're done, make sure that you click on save at the bottom left. So with each of these tabs, you have to save what you've done at the end. You click on save, you'll get a little notification that lets you know it was saved, and we can move on to the header and footer. So the header and footer, the header appears at the top of your reports, at the top of that agent webpage that I mentioned earlier, at the top of the customer's portal. And then the footer also appears at the bottom of your reports of anything that's in a PDF format. Your header, the first thing that you can change is the image. So where it says banner image, you have 2 options. You can either select a different banner image or theme, and those are images that are stored within Matrix, or you can upload your own, which is the second option. If you'd like to select from Matrix and their options, you would just click on the first option. Excuse me. And you can scroll down and see everything that they have to offer. Now, once you have selected one, or you would like to select one, you click on the left-hand side. Each of them has a small circle or button. And then you would scroll to the bottom and click on the blue preview button. So again, click on the button that each banner has. So click on that button to select a banner, and then click on preview at the bottom. It's going to bring you back with that new image so that you can finish modifying your header. Beneath that, you have the option of including your photo. So you can either say no photo or use custom photo. And then right beneath use custom photo, there is a link for you to upload your picture. Beneath that, you have your branding. And in each of these pop-ups, you'll see the information from the previous tab, from that information tab that we went through first. You can go ahead and select the information from the pop-up, and you can go ahead and place that information on your header. The order in which you select it in these drop downs or pop-ups is the order in which it appears on the actual header. And then beneath the branding, you have colors. So if you'd like to change the color scheme of the font and the background of that area, you absolutely can by selecting use custom colors and then customizing those colors. Beneath this, you have a print header, and this is not meant to be modified or edited. This is simply for you to see what it looks like on a smaller scale. So what you saw at the top is how it appears on your agent webpage and on the customer's portal. What you see here is how it appears on your PDF reports, just so that you can see how it looks on a smaller scale. Beneath that, you have your print footer. Again, this only appears on your PDFs, on your reports. If you would like a footer, you would select the option yes. You would choose your branding from these pop-ups. Same as you did for your header, you can repeat that information. You can have it be your information at the top, the office at the bottom. It's up to you. And then you have the option of modifying your colors again. If you would prefer not to have a footer, you simply click on no print footer for me, and that's the end of that. When you're done, you're going to make sure that you click on save at the bottom left. Again, it'll always kind of give you a little notification in the top left in yellow that says your changes have been saved. After your header and footer, you have your CMA cover sheet. The CMA is the comparative market analysis. We show you how to create the report in Matrix 301. We don't show you how to search for comparables or how to select them. We do that in another class called CMA Workshop. And again, we have videos of almost all of these already for you on Miami Realtors Live and on youtube.com/miamitrainers. So in the CMA cover sheet, you have your information listed on the right, and you have the option of overwriting quite a few things, and it's up to you how you would like to set this up. So basically on that first page of your report, what information of yours would you like in the little corner, which is usually at the bottom of the page, that's dedicated to the agent that created the report. One thing that I'd like to point out to you here is on the left-hand side where I have the Miami Realtors logo, you have a silhouette or a cutout of two people shaking hands. If you do not upload a photo of some sort or a logo, that silhouette will appear on your reports. And those reports are oftentimes used for listing presentations. So if you are not a huge fan of that silhouette, I would recommend that you replace it with something else. Again, when you're done, make sure you click on Save at the bottom left. Next to the CMA cover sheet, you have your email signature. The email signature is attached to anything that you send via email through Matrix. You need to come into this portion. You need to type out everything that you would like included. You have some options for formatting. So you have your cut, copy, paste options. You have your undo and redo options. Your hyperlink. You can insert a photo, a table, a line break, special symbol for things like copyright symbols, registered trademarks, or if your name has a special character or accent. You have your bold, italicized, etc. You have your numbered list, bulleted list, your indentation. You have your font choices, your font size, font color, and background color. The two questions I get asked most often when I'm teaching this in a face-to-face live class is how did I add in a photo or logo, and how did I add in a hyperlink? So I'm going to go ahead and take the picture out for a second. And I'm going to take a couple of these hyperlinks out as well. So what I did was, once you've loaded your picture into your header and or your CMA cover sheet, the system kind of puts it away for you to then be able to place it into your email signature. So again, what I'm about to show you works after you have loaded a picture into your header and or your CMA cover sheet. Once you've typed everything out, you're going to go ahead and click and place your cursor wherever you would like to insert the picture. In the first row, toward the end, there is a small icon for images. You would click, and on the right hand side where it says select image, you would click on that button. Here's the photo I loaded into my header. Here's the logo I loaded on the CMA cover sheet. I select the image, and at the bottom right it says OK. It's a green button. I click OK, and it's inserted. So again, I'm going to do this one more time. Click wherever you would like to insert the photo. So make sure you insert your cursor where you want the picture to show up. First row of buttons, toward the end, you're going to click on the image button. You'll click on the button that says select image. You would select from your options, and then at the bottom you would click on the green button that says OK. To insert a hyperlink, you have to type a word, a phrase. So for example, I typed out Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I went ahead and I linked Facebook to my Facebook business page, Instagram to my Instagram business account, etc. So once you've typed out the word or phrase, you're going to highlight that word or phrase and then click on the hyperlink option, which is again in that first row. Where it says URL, you are going to go ahead and provide the direct link to that website, that social media for your business, what have you. You can also just copy and paste it. So if you have it open in another tab, copy the link, paste it in here. I click OK, and if you notice, Facebook is now blue and underlined, which is universal language for hyperlinks. I'm going to do that one more time. You're going to highlight the word or phrase with your mouse, click on the link button in the first row, and then where it says URL, you are going to either type or copy and paste the direct link to that website or that social media profile. You click on the green button that says OK, and your hyperlink has been created. When you are done with your email signature, again, make sure you click on Save at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to skip over the agent webpage for just 1 second, and I'm going to go into the portal profile. All right, so in the portal profile, before we start setting this up, I'd like to show you the customer's portal, which is where they would see this profile of yours. So I'm going to go ahead and open one up that I have saved in my system. When you email your customer and you send them 5, 10 listings, what have you, they open the email, they're going to read whatever message you included, and there will be a link that says click here to view listings. They're going to click, and it is mobile friendly, so they can open it on their cell phone, on their tablet, and they get this portal. So every time you email a customer listings, they are getting a custom portal that is just theirs. It's private and belongs to just them. And within this portal, your customer can actually do quite a few things. So this is an example of something I sent to a hypothetical customer, and there's that header that we just created. They can find a property, so they can actually run their own searches. They will never see the listing agent. Now, if they go to Google and they find that property elsewhere, that's a different story, but Matrix itself will not provide that information. So they can actually run their own searches. They can save those searches and they would be stored where it says My Searches. They can also categorize the properties. So these are the listings that I sent on the right-hand side, and each listing has a heart. They click on the heart and they can save it as a favorite, save it as a possibility, and they can discard the listing. Whatever they do with these listings, they would see it under favorites. So they would see everything they favorited, everything they have categorized as a possibility, or everything they've discarded. Messages would be the list of all the messages you've sent and the listings. It is not a form of two-way communication, so it's not like an inbox in the email. It is just a library or a history of everything you've sent them. And then they also have a little profile of yours that you have created, which is what we are about to do. Okay, now another thing to point out, when they click on a property, they will see the rest of the listing information, the rest of the pictures, everything that was added in. When they click on the property, they would see the rest of the photos, they would see the rest of the listing details. Again, never seeing the listing agent, and they can also add a note. Okay, so there's quite a few things they can do in this portal. So when we are done setting up your portal profile and your agent webpage, we are going to move on and set up notifications so that you can receive an email or a text message every time they do something in the portal. Otherwise, they're going to be doing tons of stuff in here and you might not even know. So what do we want them to see in our profile? Where it says portal profile, which is where we left off, you can add in a photo, you can add in a portal greeting in English and or Spanish. You have to provide the English and Spanish versions. The system will not translate anything for you. The reason they are asking you for English and or Spanish is because you can email your customers the listings in English or Spanish. And so depending on the version you send them, they would see the correct greeting. The inventory slideshow is just going to go ahead and add in a little slideshow of properties, and it can be things like your active listings. If you don't have active listings, it can be your office active listings because the office always has something. And if you don't want to include that, you don't have to. Same with the video. You can go ahead and add a video in. All you would have to do is give it a title, copy and paste the link from YouTube, and have a video. If you would rather not, you don't have to do this either. And then lastly, you have your contact information. So you have those same drop downs that we saw with the header and footer. Now, in order for your customers to see this on the profile within their little portal, you have to make sure that not only is the information loaded, but that you've also checked off the categories or sections that you want. So even though I have a video in here, they're not going to see that video because I didn't check it off. So again, you have to load the information or the content, and you have to select on the right hand side what you would like them to see. And when you're done, you click on save at the bottom of the screen. All right, now I had skipped over the agent webpage because there are some things that you complete in this portal profile that can be also added into your public agent webpage. So your agent webpage is, again, public, so anyone can see it. You can share this on social media, put it on your business card, etc. If you'd like to use it, you enable it. If you're not interested, maybe you have a website, you can just disable it, and that's the end of that for you. But if you would like to use this, you enable it. Where it says webpage URL, you can modify the URL to a certain extent. So the exact link to this page for you would be whatever you enter in this field, .sef.mlsmatrix.com. If you've purchased a domain, you can go ahead and link it so it can be rerouted, and that would be at the end of the screen, and that would be done through whatever provider you purchased that domain from. Your webpage title is what appears in the tab, so the little tab that's open at the top of the browser. You have space for content, so you can type something out, but you just typed a greeting for your portal profile. So beneath this section where it says additional section, you can go ahead and take things that you did for your portal profile and have them included in this public page. So if I don't want to type the greeting again, I can just click on the greeting, click on add, and add it to my public page. You can do the same with all of the other sections that were included in the portal profile. Beneath that, you have the map area. So on your public page, people are allowed to run searches. Again, never seeing the listing agent. So if they're interested, they have to communicate with you. But when they're searching, there's a map associated with the search. So this is where you would set up the map. Do you want to just not specify an area? It kind of opens up to most of the state of Florida. Would you like to restrict the search to a certain area? You can go ahead and draw a shape around your specific market and only allow them to search there. Or you can specify where the map originally kind of opens up, but they can search whatever they want. So you have your three options. If you choose the second or third option, you do need to click on Set Map Area to specify that location or that starting point. You can also include a sign-up form on your public page by checking off Include Sign-up Form, and you can include a little message that would appear on the sign-up form. And then at the very end, you have your additional domains. Again, if you've purchased a domain and you would like to reroute, you can go ahead and talk to, GoDaddy or Wix or what have you, and reroute this page and have it connected or linked to that domain that you purchased. At the bottom of the screen, make sure you click on save to save what you've done. All right, so now that we have set up all of our basic profile and all of our CMA cover sheet and our headers and footers and whatnot, let's go ahead and set up your notifications so that you can be alerted when your customers are doing certain things within their customer portal. So the next step would be to hover over My Matrix and click on Settings. And then at the bottom of the screen almost, it says Portal Notification Settings. You click on that. So again, My Matrix, click on Settings, look for Portal Notification Settings, click on that. What we see here is on the left, every action that's being monitored. And this only works if you have saved your customer as a contact. So I'll show you really quickly how to do that when we're done here. But we've got all of these actions being monitored. For each of these actions, you can receive, and it depends on whether or not you want to receive it. You can either receive no notifications because you're not interested in that action. You can receive 1, 2, or 3 notifications. So you can either get an immediate email, and that would be 1 email per action per customer. You can receive a text message, again, per action per customer, or you can receive a daily summary that would list everyone and what they did that day, if they did something, and assuming that you selected that option for that action. So for example, I'm not interested in seeing every time they visit the portal, so I didn't select any notifications. But I did select the daily summary for everything else. And then the text messages, I would reserve this for what you deem most important. Because if not, it could be too many text messages that you're receiving from the system. So I've selected things like every time they save a favorite or when they add a note so that I know that they're trying to tell me something, or when they go into the portal for the first time so I know they got my email and they went in. You can set this up however you'd like. You can modify this as many times as you'd like. There are no limits to that. But if you would like to receive text messages, you do have to opt in. So at the bottom of the screen, right beneath that table of notifications, you have text notification settings. To set these up, you would click where it says click here to edit your cellular information. You would type your cell phone number, and that is your 10-digit number, no hyphens, no parentheses, no spaces, just the 10 digits. Select your cell phone service provider. Click on send me a verification code. They're going to text message you a 4-digit code, and it usually comes in pretty quickly. You're going to type in that code. So I'm going to go ahead and enter the one I was sent, and then you are going to save your cellular information. Once that is saved, you then need to save the rest of the notifications by clicking on save at the very bottom of the screen. So in essence, you're saving twice. You're saving your cell phone information so that you can receive text messages, and you're saving the notifications that you selected at the top of the screen. All right. So now that we have that all done, we have all of our basics set up, we can jump into a search. So if I hover over search, I have all of my different searches by category. So those property types that we discussed at the very start of the webinar are also the way that we search. So if I'm searching for residential sales, that's my RE1, RE2. If I'm searching for rentals, that's my RNT. So everything is organized in the same format. I'm going to go ahead and run a search for single family homes. So I'm going to click on RE1, RE2. And once this loads, what you see here are basically like 3 columns. The one all the way to the left is going to be your statuses, because you can always search for multiple statuses at once. Your property type and water, things like waterfront and pool. In the center, it's all about location. So you can search for properties by zip code, by area, by city, etc. So everything about location is in the center. And then all the way to the right is kind of like the customer's wants and needs. So what's their price range? What's their budget? How many bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, garage? If there's anything you need to add to your search that is not up here at the top of the screen, you can add it by clicking on add or add remove where it says additional fields. So if you scroll down a little bit more, at the end of those 3 columns, you'll see a gray bar kind of like dividing the screen, and it'll say additional fields. You can go ahead and add or remove fields as needed. So you can go ahead and click on that word or phrase, and to add a field, you would search through these available fields and then click on add. So for example, if I wanted to add in association fees, I could go ahead and search for association. There it is, association fee. I click on it, I click on add. And I can go through and add any field that I think I may need to use at some point. Remember that these fields do not affect your search if there's no criteria in them. So just because they're there doesn't mean it's a part of the search. As long as that field remains blank, it's just there and you use it when you need it. When you are done, you need to remember to click on back at the bottom of the screen. Do not click on the back and forward arrows that are built into your browser. So your browser has the back and forward arrows usually in the top left. Matrix doesn't respond well to those. We are always going to use the buttons that are built into Matrix to go between different things. So we're going to go back, and now anything that you added, again, would be at the bottom of the screen where it says additional fields. And again, doesn't affect your search. Things that are included in your search are criteria and actual values that you supplied. If it's just there and it's blank, it's not part of your search. So you can leave it there and then just use it when you need it. I'm going to run a really simple search and I'm going to look for some single family homes. So I'm going to go ahead and leave active selected. It's always kind of checked off by default. And I'm going to specify single family and then be even more specific and say single. I don't want to run the risk of getting a combination of single family homes and mobile homes. I'm not going to touch waterfront or pool. And in the center, I'm going to go ahead and use zip code. Okay. Now, just so that you know, things like zip code, city, you can actually search multiples just by putting a comma. So if I wanted to search more than one zip code, more than one city, I would just put a comma and create a list of that criteria. Now where it says price, I'm going to go ahead and say 400 to 500. And I don't have to put those last 3 zeros because if you notice, the system kind of already recognizes that. So I'm going to put 400-500. Now, for most of these fields in this column, if you put a number, it is going to look for things that are or that have exactly that. So if I were to put 400, it's going to look for properties that are listed at exactly $400,000. If I put 400 plus, it's going to look for properties that are listed at 400,000 or more. If I put 400 minus, it's going to look for properties that are listed at $400,000 or less. And if I put 400-500, anything that's listed between $400,000 and $500,000. Those rules, those little tricks, not tricks, but those little commands apply to most of the things in this column, like bedroom, bathroom, square footage, year built, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and look for a property that has, let's say, 3 to 4 bedrooms and at least 2 bathrooms. So I'm going to say 2 plus. So basically, I'm asking the system for single family homes in 33145 between $400,000 and $500,000 that have 3 to 4 bedrooms, 2 or more bathrooms. And I have 12 matches. So if I scroll down a little bit, again, at the end of that first column, I can clear everything, which would delete everything, and I would start from scratch. I see that I have 12 matches. I can see them on the map, and I can click on results and get a list of results. So I'm going to go ahead and click on results. And this is how your results generally load. So I'm going to scroll out for a second, or kind of zoom out for a second, so that I can go through these columns and talk to you about what these columns are showing you. So starting from left to right, I've got these funny little symbols which allow me to manually rearrange these. Sometimes people like to rearrange them based on like top 5, which might not necessarily be price related. So it allows you to just manually click and drag and move them around. Another way for you to reorganize them is by clicking on the column title. So if I want it organized by price, I click on list price, LP, and it's going to organize it either from least to greatest. If I click on it again, it's going to organize it from greatest to least. So really quickly, clicking on any of these titles allows the system, or tells the system, to rearrange the results based on the information in that column. So next to that little symbol to rearrange manually, you have your numbered list. I have 12 results, so it's going 1 through 12. And then I have 2 small icons. The very first one allows me to look at pictures without having to click into the listing. So I can just click on the pictures. There we go. And I can look at the pictures without having to jump into the listing info. When I'm done with the pictures, I can close it out. Next to that, I have a small clock, and that clock is going to give me the property history for that listing. So how many times has it been listed and what happened while it was listed. This isn't going to give me the full legal, public record. This is just what's happened with it in Matrix. So I can click on that little clock and see when it was listed, if there were price reductions when they happened. This one, for example, has been listed multiple times. It's been listed once, twice, 3 times. And this is the most current. It's always going to be organized chronologically from most recent to oldest. And it'll tell you when it went active. There have been price decreases. It was a pending sale. It went back on the market, price decrease. Okay, so it's going to give you a breakdown of what's happened in the MLS. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Next to that, you have the MLS number, and I'll leave that for last. But clicking on the MLS number allows you to see the full listing details, including the listing agent. And you see that as the agent, but again, your customer does not. Your status, they're all active. You have your area, your address. If you click on the address, it's going to obviously give you the map location, but it also, in the top left, gives you Google Street View, which allows you to kind of take a peek and see what's going on around the property. Next to that, you have the subdivision name, and then next to that, you have some arrows. In my situation, they're all pointing downward, which means that the listings that have this arrow had a price decrease. If they were pointing upward, there was a price increase. I have my list price, which is LP. SP is sold price. Because these are all active and they haven't sold, there is no sold price yet. Number of beds, FB is full bath, HB is half bath, square footage of the living area. Property type, year of construction is YR, GAR is garage, pool, WF is waterfront, design, lot square footage, and then you have some symbols at the end. The green dollar symbol is going to open up the public record information through a product named Realist. The blue circle with the white eye is going to open up the information through a product named IMAP. The one next to that, some of them have it, some of them don't. That is showing time. Showing time is, it's up to the listing agent, but it allows you to schedule a showing. So it allows you to schedule an appointment for a showing. And then at the very end, you have your videos and virtual tours. Now, the very last column, which is all blank for me, would be upcoming open houses or currently upcoming virtual open houses. And you would see a little icon of an open door. Now, if I click on any one of these listings, I'm going to see the full listing detail. I'm going to see the remarks. At the bottom, I see the listing agent. Okay, I have 3 tabs: the listing, the property history again, the photos. I can click on the photos and enlarge them. If I go back to listing, I have these little icons that allow me to jump into different products. So let me zoom in again. So you have things like Realist and IMAP again. You also have RPR, which is another great resource to get public information and additional information. But really important, there is a yellow triangle with an exclamation point. This allows you to anonymously report errors. So if you find an error in that listing, you can go ahead and report it. The listing agent will not know it was you. We will go ahead and let them know that there was an error and that it needs to be fixed. And we always give a grace period. So we usually give you 2 business days to make your corrections. If you still haven't made your corrections at that point, that's when we roll out the fines. Okay, so if you see something, report it by clicking on that yellow triangle. Now, if I want to go back to that list, I'm going to go ahead and click on Agent Single Line Display, and you can actually customize your display. So at some point it might say something else, but it'll always say the word display. I click, I'm not going to click on the back arrow. I click on Agent Single Line and it takes me back to my list of results. So let's say I go through all of this and I decide to send my customer numbers 2 and 3. I think they're going to like these 2. And I want to email them. I can go ahead and select number 2, number 3. I click on, at the bottom of the screen, under Actions, there's a button that says Email. I click on Email. And just like any other email, I'm going to go ahead and send this to someone. Now, if you have not saved the person as a contact, I recommend you always save your customers as contacts. There is a link that says create a new contact that allows you to save them on the spot without having to leave the email. So I can go ahead and create a new contact. I'm going to create my contact, let's say Betty Boop. Anything that's in yellow is required. Everything else is optional. So I've got her name, her email. I click on save and it is now going to go to Betty. So I'm sending it to Betty. You can BCC yourself a copy so they get a copy and you get a copy. You can select your language, English or Spanish. Write a subject. So I'm going to put, homes for you. And then I can write a message. They'll read the message. The link will be right beneath that. Here's my signature. I can edit if I need to. And then at the bottom, I can cancel. I can preview. So I can see a preview of what the properties look like in the portal. There we go. And I can just click on send and off it goes. It'll send it off. I come right back to the search, which is convenient because sometimes you have customers that are searching for similar things in similar areas. And that way, if I needed to also send this to someone else, I could go ahead and then just jump into sending it to the next person. Now, let's say I send this to my customer and Betty comes back and says, Maggie, thanks, but I kind of don't get this customer portal. There's a lot going on and I'm not that tech savvy. I just want to see like a list of properties. I don't want to see all this other stuff. I don't need the portal. Instead of emailing it to them, which sends them a link to the customer's portal, I can actually click on print. Now, print is where you would go to print and or email reports. And there are reports here for you as the agent, and there are reports for the customer. So I'm going to go ahead and click on print. And there are 3 reports that are offered that are customer friendly. Okay, so in this list, you're going to see there's client multi-row, client 8 photo, client full. There are 3 different reports and everyone has their preferences, but I'm going to show you what they look like so that you can understand the difference between the 3. The client multi-row is going to place each property in a row, and it's going to put one picture, some information, and the remarks, and that's it. This is all they get. The client 8 photo creates like a flyer almost for the property, and they're going to see 1 photo, details, remarks, some additional details, and then 8 pictures at the bottom. Okay, so here are the 2 properties. The client full is going to have every single detail that was entered into the MLS and every single picture that was entered into the MLS. Now, sometimes that can be a little overwhelming because you can enter minimum 1 picture and you can upload a maximum of 100 pictures. So I would always preview the client full before sending it. So you would choose your preferred report, always choosing from the ones that say client in the name. And then at the bottom, you can email the PDF and repeat the email process that I just showed you. You can print the PDF if you're going to go ahead and see them. And if you preview it, you can save it on your computer and maybe send it as an attachment if you prefer. But I would select my option and then I would go ahead and send it off. Now, if I go back to the results, the difference is between clicking on email and clicking on print. If I click on email, they're going to get the access to the customer portal, which is interactive. So they can search other things, they can like a property, they can reject it, and I get notifications. Whereas if I send a PDF, that's not interactive. So the only way that I would know what they did and didn't like is if they communicated that to me directly. So I would have to follow up with them. Now, if I wanted to save this search, I can save it, and what it saves is the criteria. There are 12 results today. If I run this same search tomorrow, I might have more or less. So what we're doing when we save the search is we're saving the fact that we were asking for active single-family homes in a certain zip code at a certain price range with a certain number of bedrooms and bathrooms. We're not saving these 12 properties. We're saving the criteria. So to save a search, regardless of what you have checked off or not, it's saving the criteria, which you see listed right down here at the bottom. This is what it's saving. I'm going to go ahead and where it says Actions Refined Save, I click on the word Save. And then I click on the very first option that says New Saved Search. Remember, anytime something is highlighted in yellow, it's a required field. I would go ahead and I would give it a name. So I would put whatever I want. You're the only one that really sees that name. And then if I wanted to organize this by customer as well, I could go ahead and say I did this for Betty. And lastly, optional as well, I can enable it as a favorite search, and there is a maximum of 10. So there is no limit to the number of searches that you can save, but there is a limit to the number of searches that you can say are your favorite. So I could have 1,000, 5,000 searches, but I can only have 10 favorites in that list. Or on that list, I'm sorry. So I would go ahead and I would minimum give it a name. Optional, I can add a contact or make it a favorite, and I would click on Save. Every search you save, whether you have a customer attached to it or not, whether it's a favorite or not, all of your searches, go to My Matrix, Save Searches. Okay, here's the search that I just saved today. If I wanted those results again, I would click on the search, click on the word results. and it would use the criteria and give me the results right now. If I save this for a customer, it's also going to be in my matrix contacts. There's my customer, and I see that I have a save search. I can click on the save search, click on the word results. And lastly, if you saved it as a favorite, it's on your home screen, and it would be in a widget titled My Favorite Searches. You would be able to click on the search, and it would jump straight into the results. So again, whether you saved it for a customer or not, saved it as a favorite or not, all of your searches are always going to be in my matrix save searches. Okay, that is officially the end of Matrix 101. If you have any questions, I'm going to stick around for a few minutes. Go ahead and leave those in the chat so that I can address those. If you don't have any questions, you're free to go. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar. Again, it was recorded and it will be posted on Miami Realtors Live, which is on your gateway right here, and on YouTube as well. So if you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to leave those in the chat so that I can help you. How can you save a search with only certain properties from the results? So in that situation, you're not saving the search, you're actually saving specific properties. And what you would do is you would put them in a cart. And I show you how to do that in Matrix 201 at 11. But you wouldn't save a search to save specific properties. If you want to save specific properties, you have to put those in a cart. So I would just check them off. And if you can't come to 201, I completely understand. But I would check off the properties, and then where it says carts, I would create a new cart and put it in the cart. Can you please again show how to get into Matrix? Sure. So from our website, you would log into your gateway. You always start by logging into your gateway. And you're going to see that there's a link at the top of the screen that says Gateway. You're also going to see it somewhere here in the middle, and you're going to see it down here. You log in with your license and your password. If you haven't set anything up, your license is going to be your login ID and your password. Once you get to this screen and you've got everything set up, you'll go ahead and you'll see Matrix in the first or second row. You click on it and it will launch Matrix. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have any other questions, thank you so much for attending. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Maggie. If you need me, you can always reach me by emailing me. And of course, stay safe